The great hall of the Zephyrian Empire stretched far into the darkness above. Massive pillars supported the ceiling, each one carved with the names of conquered worlds. Admiral Kex Thor stood before the War Council, his forearms crossed behind his back in perfect military posture. His silver skin gleamed under the harsh lights as he reviewed the holographic displays floating around him. "Another victory," announced General Vorthok, gesturing to the tactical readout. The Corvani system fell in exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. Protocol 7 executed with complete precision. Kex Thor nodded slowly. The Corvani had been peaceful farmers and scientists. Their ships were designed for exploration, not war. They had surrendered after their small defense fleet was destroyed in the opening minutes of the battle. It was exactly as the battle computers had predicted. The Corvani forces followed Standard Response Pattern 43, continued Vorthok. Formation: Delta defensive positioning. Retreat to planetary orbit. Final surrender when casualties reached 68%. All within acceptable parameters. The other council members murmured their approval. For over 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had dominated galactic warfare through mathematical precision. Every battle was calculated in advance. Every enemy response was predicted. Every victory was inevitable. Kex Thor walked to the massive viewing screen that showed the galaxy. Green sectors marked Zephyrian territory. Red dots showed unconquered systems. The green overwhelmed the red by a vast margin. "We have studied war for a millennium," Kex Thor said to the council. "We have fought 847 different species. We know every possible tactical formation, every defensive strategy, every desperate last stand." He paused, his dark eyes scanning the assembled generals. "War is mathematics. The side with superior numbers, positioning, and firepower wins. It is that simple." The council chamber's computers hummed quietly in the background. These machines held the battle data from every conflict the Zephyrians had ever fought. They could predict enemy movements with 97% accuracy. They could calculate the outcome of any battle before the first shot was fired. "Admiral," called out Intelligence Officer Zelandra, "we have detected a new species in Sector 792. Kex Thor turned toward her station. "Report. They call themselves humans," Zelandra said, reading from her display. "Initial scans show primitive technology. Their largest ships are barely 500 meters long. Their weapons appear to be chemical explosives and basic energy projectors." The council members looked at each other with barely concealed amusement. Primitive species were always the easiest to conquer. Their tactics were simple, their technology weak, their resolve fragile. "How many ships?" asked Kex Thor. "Approximately 200 vessels spread across 12 systems," Zelandra replied. "No unified command structure detected. They appear to be organized in small, independent groups." General Vorthok laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the chamber. "Independent groups? No central command? They will fall within hours." Kex Thor studied the tactical display showing human space. The species occupied a small cluster of systems on the galaxy's outer rim. Their ships moved in random patterns with no apparent coordination. Their colonies seemed to focus on farming and mining rather than military preparation. "What is their response to our scout probes?" Kex Thor asked. "Curious," Zelandra admitted. "They attempt to communicate rather than attack. They send mathematical sequences, images, and audio recordings. No hostile actions detected." The council fell silent for a moment. Most species either attacked Zephyrian scouts immediately or tried to hide from them. Attempting communication was unusual, but not unprecedented. "Irrelevant," declared Vorthok. "Communication attempts indicate weakness. They hope to negotiate rather than fight. This makes them even easier to defeat." Kex Thor nodded and turned back to the galactic display. The human systems would make a fine addition to the Empire. Their worlds appeared rich in resources, and their location would provide strategic depth on the rim. "I will assign Task Force 12 to handle this situation," he announced. 3 cruiser formations should be sufficient. Standard conquest protocol. The Council murmured agreement. Task Force 12 had conquered 6 systems in the past year, without losing a single ship. For a primitive species like the humans, it was overwhelming force. "Estimated time to complete conquest?" asked Kex Thor. The battle computers processed the available data. Ships, weapons, population, industrial capacity, military doctrine. Everything was fed into the mathematical models that had never failed the Zephyrian Empire. 4 days maximum, reported Zelandra after consulting her computers. Probability of success, 99.4%. Estimated casualties, minimal. Kex Thor felt satisfaction flow through him. Another species would join the Empire. Their resources would fuel Zephyrian expansion. Their people would serve Zephyrian glory. It was as inevitable as the movement of stars. "Begin preparation for conquest," he commanded. "I want Task Force 12 ready to depart within the week." As the council dispersed, Kex Thor remained alone in the Great Hall. He walked among the pillars, reading the names carved there. The Altarians, who had tried to hide on gas giants. The Centauri Republic, who had attempted a preemptive strike. The Vegan Alliance, who had built massive fortresses that fell in days. All of them had believed they could resist the Zephyrian Empire. All of them had been wrong. War was science, not art. Numbers did not lie. Mathematics did not fail. The humans would learn this truth soon enough. They would discover that their primitive weapons could not match Zephyrian firepower. Their scattered fleets could not coordinate against Zephyrian formations. Their peaceful nature would crumble before Zephyrian military might. Kex Thor looked up at the carved names of conquered worlds. Soon, he would add 12 new names to these pillars. The human systems would become another footnote in the Empire's glorious history. After all, the Zephyrians were the masters of war. What could a primitive species possibly do against 1,000 years of military perfection? The very idea was laughable. The computers hummed their agreement in the background, calculating trajectories and probabilities. The mathematics were clear. The outcome was certain. The humans would fall. Commander Thexville watched the blue-white star of Epsilon Eridani grow larger on his main screen. Behind him, Task Force 12 moved in perfect formation through space. 3 cruiser groups, each with supporting frigates and destroyers, 47 ships in total, enough firepower to level a planet. The battle computers hummed with confidence. Enemy strength, 12 patrol ships and 40 civilian vessels. Enemy tactics, unknown, but irrelevant, given the massive disparity in firepower. Predicted outcome, total victory, in 6 hours. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we are receiving transmissions from the human colony." "Surrender demands?" asked Thexville. "No, sir. They are sending mathematical sequences and star charts. It appears to be some form of peaceful greeting." Thexville's mandibles clicked in amusement. Even now, facing total destruction, the humans tried to communicate. It was exactly what the intelligence reports had predicted. Primitive thinking from a primitive species. "Ignore their transmissions," he ordered. "Begin standard intimidation protocol." The Zephyrian ships moved into attack formation Alpha. It was a sight that had terrified countless species across the galaxy. 3 massive wedges of warships, approaching with mechanical precision, weapons powered, and targeting systems active. The human response was immediate and completely unexpected. Instead of forming defensive lines or attempting to retreat, the human ships scattered in what appeared to be random directions. Worse, the civilian vessels began evacuating the colony stations, moving away from the battle zone in chaotic streams. "Sir," the tactical officer reported with confusion in his voice, "the enemy is not forming up for battle. Thexville studied the display with growing irritation. The human patrol ships were moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. Some were heading directly toward the Zephyrian formation. Others were circling around at extreme range. 3 had actually moved behind asteroids and powered down their engines. "They are running?" asked Thexville. "No, sir. Analysis shows they are positioning themselves for. I cannot determine their tactical intent. Their movements do not match any known battle doctrine. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. Enemy forces were supposed to either form defensive positions or attempt immediate retreat. They were supposed to follow predictable patterns that the battle computers could analyze and counter. "Begin attack," ordered Thexville. "Target the largest concentration of enemy vessels." The Zephyrian ships opened fire with devastating precision. Energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward a group of 4 human patrol ships. The attack should have destroyed them instantly. Instead, the human ships suddenly accelerated in different directions. They moved with sharp, erratic maneuvers that seemed to defy tactical logic. 2 of them actually flew directly through the incoming fire, somehow avoiding the carefully targeted shots. "How did they evade our targeting?" demanded Thexville. "Unknown, sir. Their movement pattern is completely random. Our computers cannot predict their next position." The human ships began their counterattack, and it was unlike anything Thexville had seen in 20 years of conquest. Instead of coordinated volleys or concentrated fire, each ship attacked independently. They used different weapons, different approaches, different timing. One human ship fired missiles, then immediately changed course and fired energy weapons from a completely different angle. Another ship seemed to be targeting the Zephyrian formation's flanks, forcing the cruisers to adjust their positions. A third ship was laying mines in the path of the advancing fleet. "Sir, they are coordinating somehow," reported the communications officer. "We are detecting encrypted transmissions between all human vessels, but we cannot break their codes." "Irrelevant," snapped Thexville. "Continue the attack. Their evasive maneuvers cannot last forever." But as the battle continued, the humans kept doing impossible things. They used the colony's orbital platforms as shields, forcing the Zephyrians to choose between destroying civilian targets or accepting reduced firing angles. They coordinated their scattered ships to attack from multiple directions simultaneously, then scattered again before the Zephyrians could respond. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be learning from each exchange. When the Zephyrians used Formation Beta to counter their flanking attacks, the humans immediately shifted to different tactics. When the battle computers predicted their next move, the humans did something completely different. "Battle Analysis Update," announced the tactical officer. "Enemy resistance is proving more effective than calculated. Estimated time to victory has increased to 18 hours. 18 hours? The battle computers had promised 6 hours total, including mopping up operations. Thexville felt his confidence beginning to waver. "Sir," called the communications officer, "the enemy commander is requesting to speak with you." "Patch it through," said Thexville. Perhaps the human was finally ready to surrender. The main screen showed a human face. The creature was smaller than a Zephyrian, with pale skin and strange hair covering its head. Its eyes were alert and intelligent, showing no sign of fear or desperation. "This is Colonel Sarah Chen of the Epsilon Eridani Defense Force," the human said in accented but clear Zephyrian language. "I'm calling to inform you that all civilian evacuations are complete. My people are now safe." Thexville stared at the screen. The human was not surrendering. She was not even asking for mercy. She was simply reporting the status of her civilians. "Your forces are defeated," he replied. "Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Colonel Chen smiled, an expression Thexville did not understand. "Commander, with respect, this fight is just getting started. We've spent the last 6 hours learning how you fight. Now we're going to show you how we fight." The transmission ended, and immediately the battle changed completely. The scattered human ships suddenly coordinated in ways that made the Zephyrians' formation look clumsy by comparison. They attacked in waves, each one using different tactics than the last. They targeted specific systems on the Zephyrian ships, with precision strikes that suggested detailed knowledge of Zephyrian technology. "How do they know our ship designs?" asked Thexville. "Unknown, sir. But they are targeting our communications arrays, our sensor nodes, and our command interfaces specifically." The battle raged for another 12 hours. The humans lost half their ships, but they made every loss count. Each destroyed patrol ship took out critical systems on multiple Zephyrian vessels. The survivors became more coordinated, more effective, more dangerous. When Task Force 12 finally achieved victory, it was a hollow triumph. 15 Zephyrian ships were destroyed or severely damaged. The human colony was evacuated completely, with 0 civilian casualties. The patrol ships had fought to the last vessel, giving the civilians time to escape to other systems. Thexville sat in his command chair, staring at the damage reports. The battle computers were still trying to analyze what had happened. The humans had fought like no other species in Zephyrian history. They had adapted, improvised, and coordinated in ways that defied mathematical prediction. Most disturbing of all, they had fought not to win territory or destroy enemies, but simply to protect their people. It was a concept that the Zephyrian military mind could barely comprehend. "Sir," reported the communications officer quietly, "we are receiving a message from Admiral Kex Thor. He is demanding a full report on why this operation took 30 hours instead of 6. Thexville looked at the tactical displays showing human space. Intelligence reported that the evacuated civilians had reached other human systems, carrying word of the attack. Other human fleets were reportedly moving to respond. For the first time in his military career, Commander Thexville was not certain of victory. The humans fought like no enemy the Zephyrians had ever faced. They were unpredictable, adaptive, and willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. What kind of species fought that way? And what would happen when the Zephyrians encountered more of them? Captain Jin Seojun stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, watching the stars stream past as they dropped out of hyperspace. Behind him, the bridge crew worked at their stations, with quiet efficiency. Unlike the rigid, formal atmosphere on alien warships, the human bridge buzzed with conversation, questions, and collaborative problem-solving. "Captain," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, "we're receiving the distress beacon from Epsilon Eridani. The signal is 18 hours old." Jin's jaw tightened. 18 hours meant the battle was likely over. The question was whether any humans had survived to send the beacon at all. "Dr. Vasquez, report to the bridge," he said into his communicator. "Commander Park, what's our tactical situation?" Commander Park Min-ho looked up from his station, his young face serious despite his quick smile. "We're 12 hours out from Epsilon Eridani at maximum speed. Long-range sensors show Zephyrian ships still in the system, but their formation suggests they're conducting salvage operations, not active combat." "So we're too late," said Tactical Officer Williams grimly. "Maybe not," Park replied. "I've been analyzing the sensor data from the battle. The Zephyrians took heavy casualties, much heavier than their usual conquest operations." Dr. Elena Vasquez arrived on the bridge, carrying a tablet loaded with intelligence reports. As the ship's xenobiologist and cultural expert, she had spent months studying every alien species humanity had encountered. Her knowledge might be the key to understanding their enemies. "Doctor," Jin said, "tell me about the Zephyrians." Vasquez activated the main display, showing tactical formations from previous Zephyrian battles. "They're perfectionists, Captain. Every battle they've ever fought follows mathematical principles. They use overwhelming force applied at precise points to achieve quick, decisive victories." She highlighted specific patterns on the screen. "Look at these formations. delta wedges for initial assault, beta crescents for flanking maneuvers, gamma walls for defensive operations. They've used these same patterns for over 1,000 years because they work. What about adaptation? Asked Park. Do they change tactics during battle? Rarely, Vasquez replied. Their battle computers calculate the optimal strategy before engagement begins. They stick to that strategy, regardless of changing circumstances. It's served them well against every species they've fought. Jin studied the formation charts with growing understanding. They fight like a computer program. Input the variables, run the calculation, execute the result. Exactly, said Vasquez. And that's been their strength. No wasted motion, no emotional decisions, no tactical confusion. Pure military efficiency. But also their weakness, Park said with sudden excitement. Captain, if they can't adapt during battle, if they follow predetermined patterns, we can predict their moves, Jin finished. Doctor, how many Zephyrian battle recordings do we have? Over 300, Vasquez replied. Every major engagement for the past 50 years. The refugee species we've contacted were very thorough in documenting their defeats. Jin turned to his crew. The bridge of the Indomitable was smaller than a Zephyrian command ship, but it was designed for a different kind of warfare. Every station could communicate directly with every other station. Holographic displays allowed multiple crew members to work on the same problem simultaneously. The entire design emphasized collaboration over hierarchy. Here's what we're going to do, Jin announced. Park, I want you to analyze every Zephyrian battle pattern. Find their tactical algorithms. If they fight like a computer program, we need to understand the code. Already on it, sir, Park replied, his fingers flying over his console. I'm seeing definite mathematical progressions in their responses to different situations. Williams, start working on countermeasures. If we know what they're going to do, we can be ready for it. Aye, Captain. Jin walked to the viewing port, looking out at the stars. The Indomitable was humanity's most advanced warship, but not because of superior technology. The Zephyrians had better armor, more powerful weapons, and larger ships. Humanity's advantage lay elsewhere. Dr. Vasquez, he said, what makes humans different? Why did the Epsilon Eridani defenders last longer than expected? Vasquez considered the question carefully. We don't follow the rules, Captain. Every other species the Zephyrians have fought developed military doctrine based on logic and efficiency. Humans developed military doctrine based on survival and protection. She brought up historical records from human conflicts. Look at our own wars. We've never had a single, unified way of fighting. We adapt to circumstances. We improvise. We make decisions based on incomplete information and change our plans when new information arrives. The Zephyrians see this as chaos, Park added, looking up from his analysis. But it's actually our greatest strength. We're unpredictable because we're flexible. Jin nodded. The Epsilon Eridani defenders couldn't win, but they made the Zephyrians pay a heavy price. They forced them to adapt. And the Zephyrians don't know how to adapt. Captain, Torres called. We're receiving updates from the other human colonies. Word of the attack has spread. Every system is mobilizing their defenses. Are they coordinating? Asked Jin. No, sir. Each colony is developing their own response plan. Some are evacuating, some are fortifying, some are planning guerrilla operations. A Zephyrian commander would see this as military chaos. No central command, no unified strategy, no coordinated response. But Jin smiled. Perfect, he said. The Zephyrians will try to predict our response. But there is no single response to predict. Every human force will fight differently. Sir, Park announced excitedly, I've cracked their tactical algorithm. The Zephyrians use a decision tree with 17 major branches and 43 sub-branches. Given any tactical situation, I can predict their response with over 90% accuracy. Can we exploit that? Asked Williams. Better, Park replied with a grin. We can feed them false information to trigger specific responses. We can make them think we're doing one thing, while we're actually doing another. Jin felt the pieces of a plan forming in his mind. The Indomitable carried only 800 crew members, compared to thousands on a Zephyrian cruiser. But those 800 people represented dozens of different nationalities, military traditions, and tactical philosophies. Listen up, everyone, Jin announced to the bridge crew. We're not going to fight the Zephyrians the way they expect to be fought. We're not going to use standard formations or predictable tactics. We're going to show them what humans do best. Which is? Asked Torres. We adapt, Jin said simply. We improvise. We find solutions to impossible problems. And most importantly, we protect people who can't protect themselves. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed his words. They were heading into battle against an enemy that had never lost, commanding a single ship against an entire fleet. By any mathematical calculation, they should surrender immediately. But humans had never been particularly good at mathematics when it came to protecting others. Dr. Vasquez, Jin said, prepare a briefing on Zephyrian psychology. I want to understand not just how they fight, but why they fight. Commander Park, continue your analysis. I want to know their tactics better than they do. All hands, he announced over the ship's communication system. This is the captain. We are approaching a battle that will determine the future of human space. The enemy has superior numbers and firepower, but they have one critical weakness. They have never fought humans before. He paused, looking around at his crew. We fight not for conquest or glory, but to protect our people and preserve our freedom. Remember that when the shooting starts. Remember what we're fighting for. The Indomitable accelerated toward Epsilon Eridani, carrying humanity's hopes into the void. Behind them, human space prepared for war. Ahead of them, the Zephyrian Empire waited with mathematical confidence. Neither side knew that everything was about to change. Admiral Kex Thor stood in the command center of his flagship, studying the tactical displays with growing anger. Task Force 12 had suffered unacceptable casualties against a primitive species. 15 ships damaged or destroyed by 12 human patrol vessels. It was mathematically impossible. Yet the wreckage floating around Epsilon Eridani proved it had happened. Admiral, reported his intelligence officer. Long-range sensors detect a single human vessel approaching the system. Battleship class. Approximately 800 meters in length. Kex Thor turned to examine the sensor reading. One ship. Against his reinforced fleet of 87 vessels, including 4 heavy cruisers and his own command dreadnought, the battle computers calculated the human ship's survival chances at 0.3%. Are there other human ships following? He asked. No, sir. Long-range scans show it is alone. Kex Thor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. A single ship against his entire fleet? Either the humans were insane, or they possessed some technology. The Zephyrians did not understand. Given their primitive status, insanity seemed more likely. Sir, the communications officer announced, the human ship is transmitting on all frequencies. Put it through. The main screen filled with the image of a human male. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and his uniform bore insignia Kex Thor did not recognize. The human's expression was calm, almost peaceful. This is Captain Jin So-jun of the Earth battleship Indomitable, the human said in perfect Zephyrian. I am here to offer your fleet the opportunity to withdraw from human space peacefully. No further violence needs to occur today. Tu-han. The command center fell silent. Several officers looked at each other in amazement. A single human ship was offering them the chance to retreat? You face the combined might of the Zephyrian Third Fleet, Kex Thor replied coldly. Surrender immediately, and your death will be swift. The human captain smiled, an expression that somehow made Kexthor uncomfortable. Admiral, I'm afraid surrender isn't an option. However, if you choose to continue this battle, I should warn you, we will have to get creative. Creative? What did that mean? Kexthor studied the tactical display again. The human ship had positioned itself in what appeared to be the worst possible location, directly between two asteroid fields, with its back to a gas giant's gravity well. No escape routes, no tactical advantages, no support. Begin attack formation, Kexthor ordered. Deploy Protocol 12. Overwhelming force, minimal risk. The Zephyrian fleet moved into perfect formation. 3 attack wedges approaching from different angles, each one containing enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The battle computers confirmed optimal firing solutions within minutes. Sir, reported the tactical officer, the human vessel is not moving to avoid our formation. It appears to be scanning the asteroid fields. Irrelevant. Begin bombardment. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with devastating precision. Hundreds of energy beams and missile volleys converged on the human battleship's location. The attack was mathematically perfect, impossible to avoid or survive. The Indomitable was not there when the weapons arrived. Where did it go? Demanded Kexthor. Unknown, sir. The ship appears to have used the gas giant's gravity to slingshot around. Wait. It's behind the 3rd asteroid field, using the rocks as cover. This was not standard tactical doctrine. Ships were supposed to use speed and maneuverability to avoid attacks, not gravity wells and asteroid fields. The human vessel was fighting like a guerrilla, using the environment as a weapon. Adjust formation. Clear the asteroid field. Sir, firing into the asteroids will create a debris field that will interfere with our sensors and navigation. Do it anyway. The Zephyrian ships targeted the asteroids, shattering rock and ice into millions of fragments. But instead of emerging to face them directly, the human ship used the chaos to its advantage. It appeared from unexpected angles, fired precisely targeted shots at specific Zephyrian vessels, then disappeared again. Worse, its weapons seemed to know exactly where to hit. Each shot targeted critical systems, communications arrays, sensor nodes, engine clusters. The human ship was dissecting the Zephyrian formation with surgical precision. How do they know our ship designs? Asked Kexthor. Unknown, sir, but they are specifically targeting our weak points. The battle continued, but nothing went according to plan. The human ship refused to engage in proper formation combat. It used the asteroids, the gas giants' moons, even the wreckage from previous battles as tactical assets. It fired weapons from positions that should have been impossible to reach. Most disturbing of all, it seemed to anticipate every Zephyrian move before it was made. Sir, the tactical officer reported with confusion, the enemy appears to be predicting our formations. Each time we deploy a new attack pattern, they are already in position to counter it. Kexthor studied the battle analysis. It was true. The human ship moved as if it knew exactly what the Zephyrian fleet would do next. How was that possible? Deploy Formation Gamma, he ordered. Full frontal assault. 10. Sir, Formation Gamma leaves our flanks exposed. The enemy has only one ship. They cannot exploit our flanks. But somehow, the human ship did exactly that. It appeared on both flanks simultaneously, using the debris field to coordinate attacks from multiple angles. The single vessel was fighting like an entire fleet, striking from directions that should have been impossible. Admiral, reported the communications officer, we are detecting transmissions from the human ship to unknown recipients. There are no other human ships in the system. Confirmed, sir, but the transmissions continue. Kexthor realized with growing horror that the human ship was somehow coordinating with the battlefield itself. It was treating the entire system, asteroids, debris, gravitational fields, even the radiation from the star, as allies in the battle. The engagement lasted 6 hours. 6 hours during which a single human vessel systematically dismantled formations that had conquered hundreds of worlds. By the end, 12 more Zephyrian ships were destroyed or disabled, while the Indomitable remained operational and dangerous. "Sir," the tactical officer announced quietly, "the enemy vessel is requesting communication." Kex Thor's pride was shattered, but his curiosity remained. "Put it through." Captain Jin appeared on the screen again, his uniform now showing signs of battle stress, but his expression still calm. "Admiral," the human said, "you have fought bravely, but this battle is costing both our peoples too much. I am prepared to offer you terms for withdrawal." You offer us terms?" Kex Thor asked in disbelief. "Your fleet can withdraw from human space with honor," Jin replied. "In exchange, we will provide medical assistance to your damaged vessels and safe passage to the border." Kex Thor stared at the human captain. After defeating a superior force, instead of demanding surrender or offering humiliation, the human was offering mercy. "Why?" he asked. Jin's expression became thoughtful. "Because, Admiral, we are not conquerors. We fight to protect our people, not to destroy yours. You came here believing that war is mathematics, that superior numbers guarantee victory. But war is not mathematics. War is about people making impossible choices in desperate situations. Your single ship defeated my fleet," Kex Thor said slowly. "How?" "We studied every battle you have ever fought," Jin replied. "We learned your patterns, your algorithms, your tactical responses. Then we did what humans do best. We improvised." The transmission ended, leaving Kex Thor alone with his thoughts and his shattered formations. For the first time in his military career, mathematical superiority had not guaranteed victory. A single human ship had defeated an entire Zephyrian fleet, not through superior technology or numbers, but through creativity, adaptability, and tactical innovation. They had fought like no other species in galactic history. "Sir," his aide asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Kex Thor looked at the tactical display showing his battered fleet. Pride demanded he continue the attack, but logic suggested the humans might have more surprises waiting. If one ship could do this much damage, what could an entire human fleet accomplish? "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "We withdraw from human space." As the Zephyrian ships limped away from Epsilon Eridani, Kex Thor realized that everything his empire believed about warfare had just been proven wrong. The humans had not won through superior force or technology. They had won through imagination, and that was the most dangerous weapon of all. The neutral station hung in the void between Zephyrian and human space, its white hull gleaming under the distant stars. Built by the ancient mediator species, it served as a meeting place for diplomatic encounters between hostile forces. Today, it would host the most important negotiation in galactic history. Admiral Kex Thor arrived in a small diplomatic vessel, accompanied only by essential staff. His pride still ached from the defeat at Epsilon Eridani, but his curiosity burned brighter than his shame. How had a single human ship accomplished the impossible? Captain Jin Sojun was already waiting in the conference chamber when Kex Thor arrived. The human stood as the Zephyrian entered, offering a gesture of respect that surprised Kex Thor. In galactic tradition, the victor humiliated the defeated. Yet this human treated him as an equal. "Admiral," Jin said in perfect Zephyrian, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Kex Thor studied the human carefully. Jin was smaller than a Zephyrian, with softer features and less intimidating bearing. Nothing about him suggested the tactical genius who had devastated an entire fleet with a single ship. "Captain," Kex Thor replied, "I came to understand how you achieved victory. Your ship was outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched. Mathematics said you should have died in the first minutes of battle." Jin gestured toward the conference table, where, Dr. Elena Vasquez and a young female, from an unknown species, were already seated. Mathematics only works when all the variables are known. Admiral, you were missing several important factors. As they took their seats, Kexthor noticed the diverse composition of the human delegation. Jin was clearly East Asian. Dr. Vasquez appeared Hispanic, and their aide was a tall woman with African features. In Zephyrian society, such diversity would indicate weakness and lack of unity. Allow me to introduce Dr. Elena Vasquez, our xenobiologist and cultural expert, Jin said. And this is Veltana of the Corvani people. Kexthor recognized the name. The Corvani had been one of the Zephyrian Empire's recent conquests. What was one of them doing with the humans? The Corvani system belongs to the Zephyrian Empire, he said stiffly. Veltana looked at him with large, sad eyes. My people were scientists and farmers, Admiral. We had no weapons, no military, no desire for conflict. Your empire came to our worlds and gave us a choice: serve or die. Standard conquest protocol, Kexthor replied. Your people chose service. They are now productive members of the empire. Are they? Asked Dr. Vasquez gently. Or are they slaves whose culture and identity are being systematically erased? Kexthor felt uncomfortable under the human's steady gaze. The empire brings order and efficiency. Local customs that do not serve the greater good are eliminated. And therein lies the fundamental difference between our species, Jin said calmly. You see diversity as inefficiency. We see it as strength. Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing battle analyses from Epsilon Eridani. Admiral, your forces fought with perfect coordination and tactical precision. But that precision became predictable. Captain Jin's crew included officers from 12 different human cultures, each with unique tactical traditions. The display showed the Indomitables' impossible maneuvers during the battle. Our navigator trained in the asteroid mines of Ceres. Our weapons officer learned void combat in the outer system. Our engineer studied under shipwrights from 4 different colonies. Each brought different solutions to the same problems. Kexthor studied the tactical recordings with growing understanding. Your crew was not following a single doctrine. Exactly, Jin replied. Every battle situation required creative solutions. When your formation moved to counter our position, we had officers who could think of 17 different responses instead of following a predetermined algorithm. But this creates chaos, Kexthor protested. How do you maintain coordination? Through trust and communication, Jin answered. My crew knows what we're trying to accomplish. Protect human space and preserve the freedom of all species. How we accomplish that mission is left to their expertise and judgment. Dr. Vasquez brought up comparative analyses of different species' military doctrines. Admiral, every species you have conquered developed centralized, hierarchical military systems. They became predictable because they valued efficiency over adaptability. Humans developed differently, Veltana added quietly. They have fought among themselves for thousands of years, but they never developed a single way of making war. Each conflict taught them new lessons, created new approaches. Kexthor felt something fundamental shifting in his understanding. You are saying that human weakness became strength? Our conflicts taught us that there is no perfect military doctrine, Jin explained. Every strategy has counters. Every formation has weaknesses. The only way to survive is to adapt constantly. The conference chamber fell silent as Kexthor processed this information. For over 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had dominated through military perfection. They had created mathematical models that predicted victory with near certainty. But those same models had made them rigid, predictable, and ultimately vulnerable. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez said carefully, may I ask you a question about Zephyrian culture? Kexthor nodded. When your empire conquers a species, what happens to their unique knowledge, their art, their different ways of thinking? They are evaluated for usefulness, Kexthor replied automatically. Beneficial elements are preserved and integrated. Inefficient customs are eliminated. Who decides what is beneficial? Asked Veltana. Kexthor paused. The question had never occurred to him. The Empire's efficiency algorithms, of course. Written by Zephyrians, based on Zephyrian values, Jin observed. Admiral, what if those other cultures had solutions to problems your empire hasn't encountered yet? What if their inefficient ways of thinking could have prevented the defeat at Epsilon Eridani? The concept was staggering. Kexthor had always believed that Zephyrian military doctrine was perfect because it had never failed. But perhaps it had never failed because it had never encountered truly creative opposition. You are suggesting that conquest actually weakens the empire, he said slowly. We're suggesting that forced uniformity creates dangerous blind spots, Doctor. Vasquez replied. Your empire has become so focused on mathematical perfection that it lost the ability to handle variables outside its equations. Jin leaned forward. Admiral, humans don't want to conquer your empire. We don't want to replace Zephyrian dominance with human dominance. We want to create a galaxy where different species can coexist and learn from each other. Impossible, Kexthor said reflexively. Galactic history proves that one species must dominate or chaos results. Does it? Asked Veltana. Or does galactic history prove that species obsessed with domination eventually destroy themselves through rigidity? Kexthor looked around the conference table at these impossible beings. Humans who fought not to conquer but to protect. A Corvani who spoke of freedom, despite her people's defeat. A diverse group that somehow achieved unity without uniformity. What are you proposing? A new model, Jin replied. Defensive alliances instead of empire. Cooperation instead of conquest. Each species contributing their unique strengths to solve common problems. The empire will never accept this. Perhaps not, Jin acknowledged. But individual Zephyrians might. Your defeat at Epsilon Eridani proves that the old ways are not invincible. Other species will learn from our example. They will find their own creative solutions to Zephyrian tactics. The implications were staggering. If other species began adapting human-style flexibility, the Empire's military advantage would erode completely. The choice was evolve or face eventual destruction. What would you require from the Empire? Kexthor asked. Withdrawal from conquered systems whose peoples wish to be free, Jin replied. Recognition of sovereignty for species that choose independence, and participation in a galactic council, where decisions are made through consensus rather than force. And in exchange, defensive pacts, trade agreements, shared technology and knowledge, the same security your empire sought through conquest, achieved through cooperation. Kexthor stood and walked to the viewing port, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrian Empire continued its conquests, unaware that everything had changed. Mathematical perfection had met creative chaos and lost. Admiral, Jin said quietly, we don't want to be masters of war. We want to be masters of peace. Sometimes, that requires us to be very good at fighting, but the goal is always peace. Kexthor turned back to face the conference table. For the first time in his military career, he was considering the possibility that the Empire might be wrong. That strength through diversity might be superior to strength through uniformity. I cannot speak for the Empire, he said finally. But I can speak for myself. What you propose, it deserves consideration. Dr. Vasquez smiled. That's all we can ask, Admiral. The courage to consider new possibilities. As the meeting concluded, Kexthor realized that he was witnessing the birth of a new galactic order, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple recognition that different species might have more to offer each other than just submission or resistance. The humans had proven that mathematical perfection could be defeated by creative adaptation. Now, they were proposing something even more revolutionary: that former enemies could become allies through mutual respect and shared purpose. It was either the most naive idea in galactic history or the most brilliant. Time would tell which.